Check. Check. Okay.
Are we up?
Well, we'll wait and find out, but I think we're good.
Okay.
All right. That must have finished the bottle of
'Kay.
scotch before this meeting.
Do we have audio, guys?
Can we hear? Can we hear?
Sounds perfect now. The sound of one hand clapping.
Hello?
Hold on. Maybe Noah can do a bad voiceover.
Hearing.
Like
Okay.
Kung Fu movie.
All right. Everybody says we're good.
I was just about to write, we're working on it, but apparently I don't have to do that.
I'm gonna have to take full responsibility. That's my fault. I was just telling Noah, all right, Noah, so I'm gonna just rattle off my checklist, and he's like, cool, man, yeah. And then I didn't say anything about audio, so go ahead, Tony.
Well, sorry for those technical difficulties, but welcome to the first weekly Fretboard Wizard Hangout. I'm super pumped you're here. There's been just a buzz of activity within the course, and it's really, I got to be honest, it's really humbling to see everybody in there working through the lessons, seeing the struggles, seeing the successes, seeing the questions. This is probably the most exciting time for me as a teacher, and I'm sure it is for you as well. And I'm sure you guys are all wondering, gosh, okay, what are we gonna do on this live Q&A? Well, my goal here is, first I want to kind of help set the tone for the course. So I'll do that. That'll be some items of business, and I've got a ton of notes here. And then we're going to dig into a quick review of the lessons that have been gone over so far, just to kind of bring everybody up to speed. And then I'm going to address some frequently asked questions on those lessons, kind of common trends that I notice in the comments of the lesson and things like that. And then we're going to go ahead and answer some questions that you may have remaining live. And then we'll celebrate some small wins and just kind of end it with a big digital guitar geek high five and some good luck for the next module that's going to be released next week. So without further ado, I want to talk about Fretboard Wizard, the course. And you guys, we opened enrollment, everybody dove in, and you guys are all here now, so congratulations. That's a huge step, first and foremost. So you should be happy that you've taken the step towards this knowledge and learning to apply this knowledge. But please know that this material I've distilled down into a simple format so that you can apply it to the guitar. Now, when I say simple, I don't mean that it's easy to accumulate this knowledge, okay? It's going to take some time. It's going to take some repetition. It's going to take going through the lessons, maybe reading the comments below, seeing what other people have to say. So don't, please, and this is easier said than done, don't try your best not to panic or feel like you're way behind the group, okay? We're all at different places. I know when I went to my first jam, I mean, I felt like I was way behind the group, but it's not about oh, everybody's here and I'm over here. It's just about all of us learning this material together and bringing it to our own unique situation. So we have some beginners in the program that are having light bulb moments. We have some players that have played for a long time that are having light bulb moments. But we're all trying to learn how to apply this information to our unique situation. So if something's not clear, please leave a question in the comments on the lesson. That's the best place for your questions. I go through those questions daily and answer as much as I possibly can with as much detail as I can. And by asking those questions in the comments below, the reason I'm having you do that is twofold. Number one, you get your question answered. And the second is that likely somebody else has that same question. And just by you asking that question and me answering it, that provides a resource for everybody in the course. So it's really important that if you have any questions or anything, keep those on the lesson comments. Or, of course, the quiz comments as well. There's been some quiz questions as well that have kind of been a snag for some folks. So
Tony, you're saying don't leave them in the forum.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct, absolutely. And so far, the forum looks great. There's our introduction section and then our challenge section, which I'll get to here towards the end of today's live Q&A. I just want to run down my list real quick and see where we're at. Oh, one of the things that I do want to mention, in terms of understanding where this knowledge fits in our guitar journey, I always draw this parallel between a pendulum swinging back and forth. Sometimes we swing over to the knowledge side and we accumulate all this knowledge. And we stay there for a while, and it's a lot of brain work, but it doesn't feel like we're able to execute it on the guitar yet. Well, that'll happen when the pendulum swings over to the technique portion. So just understand and just be okay with recognizing where you're at on that kind of spectrum. Maybe you're into the point now, maybe this is your first round of Fretboard Wizard, and you're thinking, gosh, I'm having some light bulb moments. I get the concepts. And maybe some second round Fretboard Wizard people, you see some comments down there saying, holy cow, I can make that chord shape finally or something like that. Well, that's because they were in the brain portion and then the pendulum swung over to the technique and the physical execution of it. So keep that in mind as well. I never expect any student to on the first pass get all this stuff immediately and just kind of find out the secret. This is a big lesson in what I like to call cyclical learning. You'll learn something like the major scale, and then think, okay, cool, I got it, nailed it, great, I got it all understood. And then you'll take it to your guitar and you'll start applying things, and then a question will come up, and you'll come back through, and then all of a sudden, that answer will reveal itself. You've known it all along, but you haven't had the right context to apply it to. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody's on the same page. I'm loving the positivity. I'm loving the help. I'm loving all the comments, and I love hearing about your light bulb moments and small wins. So please, as I'm going through the questions and things today, if you have small wins, light bulb moments, go ahead and put hashtag small win, hashtag light bulb moment, and type those in the comments. At the end, Noah's going to be gathering those, and we're going to be going through those at the end as kind of a celebration and a Guitar Geek high five. So very quickly, let's go through, excuse me. You all have seen the foundational 5 material now, and of course, how to find the key by ear opened up on Monday. So some of you have had a chance to go through that. So I want to just do a very quick review of what we know so far, and then I'll address some frequently asked questions. So here's what we know so far. We know the musical alphabet. We know that it starts on A and goes to A and repeats. And we also know that there's spaces in between those notes. The 2 pairs of crucial notes that we need to know are B and C and E and F. Both of those have a naturally occurring half step in between them. There's a half step in between B and C, a half step in between E and F. All the other notes have a whole step.
You can look at that camera.
Oh, this camera?
Yeah, if you're pointing, you can do that.
I didn't know that. It got me too.
Yeah.
Oh, Levi's got all this new fandangled technology.
Some things I do have. Sometimes, audio is not one of them, but sometimes I do have things.
So I'll look over here now. Right. So we know the musical alphabet. We know those spaces in between the notes. Next, we go to the major scale, and what we need to know for the major scale is that a major scale, all it is an arrangement of whole and half steps. Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Our model major scale starts on C and ends on C. There's no sharps, there's no flats. That's why it's our model major scale, because we're using all natural notes And by virtue of those natural notes and their naturally occurring spaces, we get the recipe for the major scale. Once we have that major scale, we can then construct the chord matrix by isolating the first degree, the third degree, and the fifth degree. And I'm going to flip now. And this gives us our chord matrix. We're starting on line 1 with our major scale, C to C. We're taking the third degree and dropping it down to row number 2 here and going from E to E. But this row does not follow the major scale formula. We're using the same exact notes that are on line 1, but we're starting on E and ending on E. And then we isolate the fifth degree of the scale, and we go ahead and write that down here and extend that, in this case, from G to G. That gives us the chord matrix. Well, great. What is this useful for? Well, this shows us all of the naturally occurring chords in the key of C major. They're composed of the notes within that major scale. So for a C major, we need a C, an E, and a G. That gives us a major chord. And so on and so forth. It gives us all the chords and, more importantly, their tonalities within the key. So if we look at the first degree, it's a C. That gives us a major chord. The second degree, D. That's a D minor chord. Third degree, E, E minor chord. Fourth degree, F, F major, so on and so forth. Fifth degree, G major. Sixth degree, A minor. Seventh degree, B diminished, and then it repeats again. But how do I know that those are major and minor? Well, I have to actually analyze what's happening within the stacks of notes. So that brings me to our next page. For a major chord, we're basically understanding and we're hearing the spaces between the notes. That's what allows us to hear a chord and say, oh, that sounds happy. Oh, that sounds sad. So for a major chord, we need a major third stacked on a minor third. For a minor chord, we need a minor third stacked on a major third. And then for a diminished chord, it's 2 minor thirds stacked on top of each other. Now, that's what we've gone over in the foundational 5. I'm going to switch over here. We've gone over that in the foundational 5. And now, come Monday, well, Monday happened already, we released the How to Find the Key by Ear module. Now, this is a skill, again, I want you to really try your best to exercise patience, because for some people, it might click immediately. For others, it really might take a while. And there's really good reasons as to why it will take a while. But what we're exercising here on How to Find a Key by Ear is really 2 distinct pieces. First, you're able to find any note on any string now. And in doing so, we're trying to take that knowledge, being able to name what note you're playing, and say, okay, here's a song. What's the lowest note that works throughout the entire song? That is the key, or the tonal center of the song. You find that on the low E string, and by using your musical alphabet knowledge, you can go ahead and name that note. Now, there is a lot of ear training in the quiz, as you have probably seen so far. And one of the first questions that happens is, well, it's in between 2 notes, and I really don't know which to pick. That's a great question, and there's actually a very, very good reason for that. I'm going to flip back to the chord matrix here. And in terms of why would it be between 2 notes, why would 2 notes sound good? Well, let's say our song we think is in the key of C, but we also think it's in the key of G. That's actually pretty common. In most cases, when we are trying to identify the key by ear, we have oftentimes the root, or the first degree, and the fifth degree. Why? Because those are the 2 most solid notes in the scale, meaning they don't have emotional pull one way or the other. They're resting points. A lot of the notes in between have an emotional pull. Here's an example I use. I'm going to grab my guitar. An example I use is if you stop any scale pattern on the 7th degree. I'll use C here for an example. You see what I mean? It's pulling you to go somewhere. And that's what I mean by emotional pull. So C and G, in terms of the key of C, those don't have as strong a pull as the other notes. And there's another reason. Look what other note is in the first chord. There's a G in the first chord. So it's no wonder that you might be trying to suss out, gosh, is it a C or is it a G? Oftentimes, you'll narrow it down between the 1st and the 5th degree. And if you go ahead and continue playing the 5th degree through the song, you'll notice that it doesn't settle. It doesn't sound right. Not all the time, but generally speaking, over the 4 chord. In this case, it would be an F major. So a lot of times there's like this moment of, okay, cool, I've singled out 2 notes. They both sound. I'm talking, if it's a 2-minute song, play it for the full 2 minutes, because generally speaking, about 99% of the time, the key will sound good through the entire song. If you pick something other than the key, in this case maybe the 5th degree, it's going to sound a little wonky at some point. Maybe not all the time, but at some point it will. So you got to really kind of experiment with those notes. So that was a common question that I saw just off the top of my head, but I did pull some off the comments. So I want to go through those now rather quickly. And there's some more in-depth ones. I've got a lot of questions on the chord matrix, which I'll go through live. I'm going to actually write one out. And I've also got a lot of questions on how do you tell if it's a major key versus a minor key? This was a let's just say that it was a convenient little chunk of information that I left out on purpose, because I wanted you to focus on the nuts and bolts of finding the key by ear. And you'll actually realize you already know how to figure out a key, the major key versus a minor key. But we'll get to that here in a second. Let me get through some of these kind of rapid fire questions. We all know how good I am with rapid fire. So Alan K. and Byron S. both kind of had a similar question, and that was, I was confused on the B flat answer as my tuner showed an A sharp. Okay, we have A sharp, we have B flat. What's the difference? There is none. They're the same note. Let me explain. So if we have an A note on our guitar, 5th fret of the low E string, we know that from A to B is a naturally occurring whole step. That's 2 frets. That 7th fret is a B note. Well, there's 1 fret in between, right? And depending on the musical situation, it will either be a B flat or an A sharp. They don't sound any different. They're called enharmonics, E-N-H-A-R-M-O-N-I-C-S. Enharmonics, basically 2 names for the same note. Well, that's really confusing. Why would that happen? Well, it will depend on what scale you use it in. And let's actually use the F major scale as an example. So let me draw that up really quick here. I feel so professorial with a pad of paper. It's really outstanding. So here we go. Let's start. Oh, so we want to create an F major scale, right? We want to create an F major scale. So we're going to go ahead and write down all of the natural notes as a starting point. F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F. And we're looking for whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. This is what we need for a major scale. We certainly don't have that here. We have a whole step. Things look great here. Between F and G, we have a whole step between G and A. We have a whole step between A and B. We want a half step, though. So you think to yourself, okay, well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and add an A sharp. This makes A sharp to B. That's a half step. Okay, cool. Carrying on, I'll go ahead and do a B and C. That's a half step. I need a whole step. Well, cool. I'll just make a sharp there. And then I need a whole step there. I'll make a sharp there. D to E. Well, D sharp to E is a half step. I need a whole step. I guess I'll sharp the E, and then all of a sudden things get really messy, right? That's not correct. What is correct? Let me show you. I'm going to write that same exact scale, series of notes rather, starting on F and going to F using all natural notes. F to G, whole step. Boom, we're in business. G to A, whole step. Still in business. A to B, we need a half step. Well, last time I did a sharp and that fixed the problem, but it created a way bigger problem. If we look what that A sharp did here, it took what was a whole step, G to A, and made it a step and a half. which is, we don't need that for a scale. So what we'll actually do here, instead of making the A sharp, we'll make the B flat. That still shrinks this gap and retains the whole step that we need here. So A to B flat, half step, cool. B flat to C, remember, it's not B to C now, it's B flat to C. That's now a whole step, so we're in business. C to D, whole step, D to E, whole step, E to F, half step. We've just created a major scale. So what's the deal with the sharps and the flats? Well, the whole point is it depends on what sharps and flats are our tools to fix the natural arrangement of notes to create whatever scale that we need. And in some cases, as you saw here, the sharp actually put us in way bigger trouble than the flat did. So that's why you would use sharps and flats. I want you to think of them as tools to fix a scale. And don't think of them as unique notes. Think of sharps and flats as tools to fix a scale, oftentimes referred to as accidentals. So hopefully that helped Alan and Byron. Scott says, so this is my first aha moment. I hope it's right. You learn and practice scales so you know how to play in different keys, right? Absolutely correct. Good job on the light bulb moment, Scott. Next question, Carol M., Fretboard Wizard alum and TAC member says, well, when I found out how a C major chord was made, one of my first confusing thoughts was, okay, if we're talking about the notes C, E, and G here, then why is the low E string not welcome to join in when we strum the C major? The bass string of the C major is always the 5th string, which is fretted on the 3rd fret, making it a C note, which names the chord. I get that. But the 1st string is played open in a C major chord, which is also an E. And it sounds lovely. Why does it sound so bad with the low E string in there too? Well, what Carol's referring to here is, when we make a C chord, it's kind of our standard C chord, and we strum from the A string down. Sounds swell, sounds great. We're ending on a high E, that's part of the chord. We have a G in there, we have a C. And we have duplicates too, and duplicates are okay. It's a nice full sounding C chord, but now let's include that low E string. Well, it actually doesn't sound awful, but it's not what we're used to hearing. And what she's getting at here and what she's hearing is that we can play chords. There's 3 notes in a chord. I'm going to go back to that chord matrix. There's 3 notes in a chord, in this case C, E, and G. We can have them occur in any order, E, G, C, G, C, E. It still will be a C chord, but it's stacked differently. And that's whenever you hear the word chord voicings, that's what that means. The notes are arranged differently. We're used to hearing, this C chord, C, E, G. But if we throw that low E in, it's not wrong, but it just sounds a little different than we're used to. We can actually take our pinky and fret that 3rd fret of the low E and make it a G. It's still a C chord. It's just a different voicing. So hopefully that helps, Carol. That's a really great question. It's funny because oftentimes, these things will occur to us after the fretboard knowledge piece, and all of a sudden you're like, wait, why do I do that in the first place? Those are really cool moments because it's in those moments that you can start to fuse this knowledge with your guitar playing. So that was a great question, Carol. All right. Grace says, this actually goes along the same lines. I just want to read this because I thought it was a great phrasing of the question. If I have a minor chord, example A minor, we play 5 strings. Open A string, E, the D string, A, G string, C, B string, then the high E. The chord has 3 notes, but we play 5. Are the extra notes A and E? Are they okay because we're replicating notes in the chord just to make it easy to play? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Even though a chord only contains 3 notes, you can play duplicates of that note of those notes if you want to. It'll actually fill out the sound of the chord and make for better strumming. All right. Paul H. says, this is a question I get a lot, and I actually have a comment on this. Paul H. says, hey, Tony, I'm bothered by your stacking terminology. I would build a minor chord by stacking a minor third over the root and then stacking a major third next to complete the triad. You seem to be working from the top down and getting a reverse order for the stacking. I understand that using the chord matrix forces your top-down perspective. So you win, I will adjust. Thank you for the comment, Paul. And actually, Paul, it's been nice to get to know you. He's been to the TAC Jamboree 2 years in a row now. And whenever I refer to chord creation, I'm not referring to standard notation here. You're not going to see any standard notation in this course. Not that I think it's bad. I think it's great. But for me, when this information clicked is when I took that piece away and I just focused on the letters, what that meant. So yeah, my terminology in terms of chords is that I will stack the thirds according to the chord matrix. I will always refer to the chord matrix. And that's the way that I have found to teach it best, and that's the way that I've found most people can understand it, and most importantly, apply it to the guitar. So good observation, Paul. I've gotten a couple other questions on that. I think Dave B. said the same thing, but I am not referring to standard notation here. I'm just referring to the chord matrix, hence my, my way of speaking about it. Manuel says, hey, Tony, amazing lesson. Just wondering if there's any way to practice and strengthen our left hand in order to get good at doing the difficult, not so common shapes, C, G, and D shape all through the neck. He's really enjoying the course. So this refers to the cage lesson. And we all, you guys have gone through the cage lesson so far. And you're probably thinking to yourself, in some aspect, okay, I get it. You can navigate the neck with all these different chord shapes. But when the hell am I going to use a closed G chord shape? When the hell am I going to use a closed C chord shape? And your question is totally valid, and my answer is almost never. To be quite honest with you. So hopefully you're breathing a sigh of relief right now, because these shapes, what the cage system allows you to do is look at the guitar neck in 5 chunks. Okay. Are some chord shapes way easier than others? Absolutely, use those. Are some chord shapes not even, you can't even fathom making them? Yes, that's the case as well, but it's more of a way to navigate and move around the fretboard and know where you're at. But real quick on those weird chord shapes, I'm going to go ahead and make a G-shaped B chord, meaning my root is on the low E on the 7th fret. I never use this chord, ever. I probably never will, but I'll tell you what, I will use this chord. It's just a little piece, so I encourage all of you, any of you who are having problems with any of those chords on the caged system lesson, look at those chord shapes and say, gosh, what can I do to make that chord easier? If it's taking away the low strings, fine. It's still a B chord, it just doesn't have the bass present. Or if it's the high strings, fine, get rid of those. Just play the low 3. Whoops, don't include that one. Just play the low 3. We want that cage system to be a guidepost for you. It's not written in stone that you have to learn these chord shapes and you have to be able to move them and have to be able to play them fast. That's not the point. The point is to have a navigation system and to take from it what you can apply right now. So if it's just pieces of those chords, by all means use the pieces. The naming convention is still the same. And by understanding that bigger chord shape where the little piece comes from, you're then able to name it and actually use it. So hopefully that helps Manuel, and hopefully for others that have been having problems with those cage shapes, hopefully that sheds a little light on that as well. Dee Dee says, I finally understand the cage system. Second time around is a charm. Thank you. Good job, Dee Dee. And the reason I chose to highlight this particular comment was that I remember sharing some messages and comments with Dee Dee the first time around that the cage system just was not clicking. Just was not clicking. There were certain concepts that helped, but all in all, in the big picture, it was kind of muddy for her. But here she is on her second time around, and it clicked. So this is the reason I wanted to bring this up. I actually probably should have brought it up earlier. Was that it really it puts on display how cyclical and how much context is required on your, you get more context your second time around, and all of a sudden things fall into place. So for those of you who this is maybe your first time around, maybe this is your first exposure to any of these concepts, hang in there and please have patience and of course ask questions. Speaking of questions, Ray, hey Tony, do you have a caged handout that has the chords grouped by shape instead of by chord? Yes, I'm currently crafting that, and I'm going to go ahead and put that link in the replay for this live Q&A. So go ahead and check back on this live Q&A after we post the replay, and there'll be a link there for you to check it out.
And Tony, where is the live replay or the Q&A replay going to be housed?
Well, so that will be, I forgot where we're going to put those. Is that going to be underneath the lesson?
You like how that's a trick question?
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah.
It is, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay, sorry. So
right, Noah?
That's absolutely correct, Levi.
So the live Q&A replay, if you ever want to come back and reference this, will be housed underneath the lesson. So you'll see how to find a key by ear. You'll see the quiz, and then the replay will be under that as a topic. So you'll be able to check that out. And it's required to mark that complete. So please do that. Even if you attended live, just go back, hit the complete button. You'll be.
I think if I'm not mistaken, that you could just click the link in the PDF.
That is correct.
That's just gonna take you right to the replay. So
that is correct.
Should be easy to find it.
I've been poring over questions and comments, and I totally forgot about the course guide. That was Levi's brainchild. So there's a link in there, too, that will take you right to the Q&A replay as well. So Nils has a great question for the Q&A session. He says, I'm not sure how to respond to the topics published by others in the Week 1 challenge. To me, it feels like a good idea to use these topics as practice, and then if I feel like it, reply whether I agree or not with the key the author has found, especially as the amount of theory presented this week is small. This will give me a lot of practice in determining the key of songs, so until now, I have done this and have heard a lot of mostly good songs, and some have been easy, some difficult to determine. Problem is, I seem to be the only one doing this consistently. What will you advise? Well, Nils, I will advise continue doing what you're doing. That's exactly what the challenge part of the forum is for. So when you go to the forum, and you can access that really quick and easy from your course homepage, under course materials, there's a link that says, take me to the Fretboard Wizard community. It'll whisk you right away to the Fretboard Wizard community, and you'll see the tabs at the top. There's a Start Here tab where you introduce yourself, and then next to that, there will be a Challenge 1 tab. Go ahead and click on that and participate in the challenge. I just checked in there this morning, and it looked like there's about 20 or so songs being posted, and I encourage all of you to go in there and dig into that. Find a song on YouTube, put your skills to work, see if you can figure out the key, and then post it in the forum. And I encourage everybody to check everybody else's work. This is a learning experience that I think is invaluable, is actually taking this skill, finding the key by ear, and applying it to the real world. It's so, so, so important, because it might make sense now when you're taking the quiz, but you want to make sure you lock it in by using it on songs you love, songs you want to learn, songs that maybe a buddy wants to learn. You can try and help them out. So please hop in that forum and start that challenge. It's not scary. You guys are so supportive, and this community is so helpful to one another. It's actually a great learning experience, and I want to thank Nils for hopping in there and jumping on the other songs that people have picked and testing out his skills as well as double checking others. So that's what it's for. Please go over there and check that out. I say that it's optional, but really it's a strong nudge to get in there, and it's almost not optional, but it's kind of optional, but it's really strongly encouraged. Clear as mud, right? What'd you say?
We have Matt, Bighorn Shaver, and Michelle all saying, oh, okay, didn't know there was a challenge. So.
Oh, yes, please head over there. There is a challenge 1 attached to lesson 1. It's how to find the key by ear in the real world. Go ahead and go to the forum. The instructions are there. I made a little video for you. And I think you'll have some fun with it. There's some great songs in the challenge so far. I've been really enjoying some of the song selections. All right. Another question from Matthew. He says, I made a test with Jack Johnson's song Sitting, Waiting, Wishing, and 2 notes are looking good, C and A. When I use another tip, beginning and ending chord on the tab, it looks like A minor is the key, but A minor is the relative minor of C, same notes in the scale. In that case, how can we make the difference between A minor and C major? Great question, and I'm sure all of you who took the quiz are like, thanks, Tony, for throwing House of the Rising Sun in there. It was a familiar song, but how in the heck do we figure out if a key is major or minor from one note? How on earth can you do that? Well, let me share with you. So you're going along, the song's playing, you find the A note, and you think, that sounds great. And then your options are A major or A minor. And you think, well, okay. No matter how you play an A note, it's an A note. A single note cannot be major and it cannot be minor. It's just an A note until you start setting a context for it. Let me give you an example. So if I play an A major scale from an A note, that A note sounds really happy. If I play an A minor scale from that A note, it takes on a whole different tonality. But that A note by itself doesn't have a tonality. So again, how the heck are you able to tell if the key to a song is major or minor? Well, there's 3 things you can do, 3 levels of testing. First and foremost, you can say, okay, I found the note that works good. It's an A or whatever the note may be. Ask yourself the question, does this song sound happy or sad? And I'm not talking lyrics here. I'm talking the tonal nature of the song. Does it sound happy or sad? Because if it sounds sad, chances are it's a minor key, but that's not the definitive answer. It'll just point you in the right direction. The second thing you can do is go ahead and say, okay, I found that note. It's an A. Play an A major chord. And then play an A minor chord. Which one sounds better over the song? Chances are one will push you in the direction of the right tonality. And then the last thing is exactly what I did to illustrate that context makes all the difference. I would like you to try and play a major scale shape over a song if you think it's major, and then a minor scale shape over a song if you think it's minor. Tony, where are we going to get these major and minor scale shapes? Well, I'm going to actually have another tab for you that will be located in the description of this live Q&A replay that you'll be able to access. So here's what I would do. I would say, okay, here I am on A. I need to figure out if this is A major or A minor. My gut says it's A major, so I'm going to go ahead and play a major scale just to see if it fits, see if it makes sense. And if that didn't work, then you go ahead and do the same note, but just play a minor scale off of it. And that right there will usually put you in the right direction. It will usually be pretty obvious once you do that, whether it's major or minor. But just remember, a single note by itself cannot be major or minor. It's the context in which that note is in that makes it major or minor. So hopefully that helps answer that question. I know it's that was a trick question, and I'm only half sorry for that because it's kind of the way I teach. I like to present you with enough information to learn the core concept, and then I like to push you one step further to draw the questions out, because then you're ready for the answer. All right. Actually, Lenny's question was the same thing. I had singled out 2 questions on that. Lenny had asked, can you cover how to tell if a song in a major or minor key in the Q&A? And then he goes on further and he says, and also, the recipe for whole steps and half steps for the minor scale. So we've learned the major scale, right? That was back in Foundation 2, actually. You learn the major scale. And you think, this is great, I've unlocked all of music. But then I hear this minor thing, and Tony throws this question at me, and now the questions are really bubbling up. Well, the funny thing is that you already know the minor scale. Let's just think back to how we learned the major scale formula. We used C as our model major scale. Gives us a whole step, half step, whole step, half step, naturally. Well, if there's a model major scale, there must be a model minor scale. Well, there is. It's A. So we have C as our model major scale, which gives us the universal pattern of whole and half steps for a major scale. And we have A as our model minor scale, which gives us the universal pattern for whole and half steps for a minor scale. So right on the guitar, as I was playing that major scale versus minor scale, you were hearing, when I did the major scale, whole step, half step, whole step, half step. When I did the minor scale, you were hearing whole step, half step, half step, half step, whole step. And when he's talking about the relative major or the relative minor, these series of notes they're the same. They just start in a different place. And that's why it's so important to understand that when we're talking about scales, it's the arrangement of whole and half steps that give it its tonality, not the notes themselves. Well, I guess the notes themselves dictate the whole and half steps, but it's really these universal rules that you want to pull out. So just remember, model major scale starts on C, ends on C. Model minor scale starts on A, ends on A. Boom, that's it. It's that simple. Moving on to the next question. I've got them numbered in order of difficulty. I'm ramping up here. Amanda F. says, hey, Tony, in this video and also on the corresponding quiz, you talk about the Nashville number system as if it's common knowledge. So do you think you can talk about it a little bit in the next Q&A video? Absolutely. So this actually goes into my next question, and I'll actually say that too. So Amanda's question was about the Nashville number system, And Ariel's question was about how to construct the chord matrix in the key of G. She also had a question on what's the 2 chord in the key of D major. A lot of questions. All of these are related. So let's start with the Nashville number system. Amanda's question. What is the Nashville number system? Well, you create the chord matrix, right? Have that. And we know that the C chord's major, the D chord's minor, E chord's minor, F chord's major, so on and so forth. That's the beauty of the chord matrix. But we go one step further. If I put any major scale on this line 1, and I go ahead and create a chord matrix from it, I can guarantee you that the chord based on the 1st degree will be major. The chord based on the 2nd degree, minor, 3rd degree minor, 4th degree major, 5th degree major, 6th degree minor, 7th degree diminished, and then it repeats again. I can guarantee it. In fact, I'm going to just go ahead and show you right now. I almost ran out of breath on that one. Whoops, that's from oh no, that's one of our examples from today. So, one of Ariel's questions was how to construct the chord matrix in the key of G. Okay, well, let's go through the steps. What do we need? We need the G major scale. How do we get the G major scale? Well, we start on G and list out all of the natural notes. Great. What do we need for a major scale? We need an arrangement of whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now let's go through each pair of notes and see where we're at. G to A, whole step, sweet. A to B, whole step, awesome. B to C, half step, this is looking so good. C to D, whole step. D to E, whole step, we're matching up great. E to F, whole step, no, I don't think so. That's supposed to be, that is a naturally occurring half step, but it's supposed to be a whole step. So what do we need to do? We need to extend the distance in between those notes by creating an F sharp. We add that F sharp, we created a whole step here, and by doing that, we actually created a half step there. So now we have our G major scale. Sweet. Life is so good. So how do we create a chord matrix now? Well, we need the 1st degree, the 3rd degree, and the 5th degree. So let's start with the 1st degree. Well, we already did that. There's row 1. We got row 1 dialed in. So what do we need for row 2? Well, for row 2 is based on the 3rd degree. So we're going to go ahead and pull that 3rd degree down. There's a B right there. And we're going to use the same notes. Okay, I'm not going to introduce any new notes. I don't have to follow the major scale formula here. It's only in row 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and do B, C, D, E, F sharp, G, A, and B. So for row 3, we're going to need that 5th degree. Okay, so we're going to start on D. Again, we're not adding any extra notes, no new notes. We're using the same contents of row 1, just starting on D and ending on D. D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C, and D. Just created your chord matrix for the key of G major. But let me loop back to, was it Amanda? Yeah, Amanda's question. So Nashville number system. Well, remember, these scale degrees are numbered. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. Remember what I said back on the chord matrix for C? Let me find it. The 1st degree is always major. A 1st degree always results in a major chord. 2nd, minor, 3rd, minor, so on and so forth. Well, that universal rule is the same. 1st degree will be major. 2nd degree will be minor. 3rd degree minor. 4th degree major. 5th degree major. 6th degree minor. 7th degree diminished, and then it repeats again. So what I know now is that as long as I have that major scale, okay, as long as I have that major scale dialed in, it follows whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. I can guarantee, with even without the chord matrix, that the naturally occurring chords in the key of G are G major, A minor, B minor, C major, D major, E minor, F sharp diminished, and then a G major again. You don't even need the chord matrix for that. But I show you the chord matrix to give you the inner workings of why the chords are major and minor. And more importantly, it will make a big difference in your improvisation framework lesson that is week 4, I believe. So, hopefully that answers that question. Both Amanda and Ariel, great questions, fantastic questions. And Gregor had a question that I answered just a little bit earlier. His was about that, if it's between two notes. Sorry, I get confused of which camera to look at. If it's between two notes, what do I go with? Remember, it's oftentimes you're going to settle on the first or the fifth. And that really is the biggest crux there. In fact, just hang on to one note, and if it makes sense through the whole thing, that's likely your key. Joe says, this is a really cool question. I've got 2 more questions, and hopefully there's questions and small wins rolling through. I haven't checked in with you guys. I'm really sorry.
Oh, we're having a great time.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, you're on it. You're on a roll. It's awesome.
I was so excited for this. I really was so excited for this live Q&A today. I got here early, and I was printing out questions. I was like, oh, and we can go into this and that and the other thing. And then I couldn't wait to get on with you guys because I wanted to clear up some of these questions. Because it's like that. It's that feeling of like, I remember this when I was going to school, a chemistry class, okay? So we had our first chemistry class, and the thoughts that ran through my head were ridiculous. Like, I went to my first class. It was a night class, and we learned about all these, I don't even know the terms now. It's like helio, coil, carbon, something. I don't know what it was. But I left that class thinking everybody else knew it, and I didn't. And I had nobody to ask through the entire week until I got back to the class. So I know that feeling, and I know that, I'm assuming some of you have that feeling as well. So I was so excited to do this today, to just kind of get us all on the same page and help out and just kind of have fun with this, because this is really supposed to be applying it to our guitars and having it fun. And I just wanted to make sure that I did that. So I'm sorry to ignore you, Levi and Noah. I got really excited. I've got all these cameras.
We'll get over it.
Got the teaching
not
camera.
Ignored.
Let me get to Joe R's question. She said, this is a question for the Q&A. Not sure if I will get to do it live, but we'll definitely check it out afterwards. It actually comes from the Foundational 5. Do you use the chord matrix to determine chords in open tunings? If so, how do you decide where to find the notes that make up the chord? I've noticed that chord charts for open tunings vary quite a bit. Do you even have chords in open tunings, or do you sort of ad-lib, and are they mainly for fingerpicking? And then she says, if this is out of the scope for FretWiz or will make things too confusing, you can answer it in some other context. I'll address the question that directly pertains to us here in Fretboard Wizard. So, open tunings are a great Fretboard Wizard example, actually. If I wanted to make an open C tuning, what notes do you think I would need? Well, open C major tuning I should define. Well, I would probably need a C, an E, and a G. If I wanted to make an open G tuning, where's my G? There's my G. What notes would I need to tune to? Well, I'd need a G, a B, and a D. Your major chord is built in. It's a beautiful thing. And of course, there's absolutely chords in open tunings. And it follows the same exact rules here. In fact, if you look at these as almost strings, if you're in an open G tuning, by not fretting anything, you're playing a G, B, and a D. If you want to play an A minor chord, go down a fret, go down 2 frets on your G string, 1 fret on your B string, and 2 frets on your E string. You'll have yourself an A minor chord, and so on and so forth. So I think, in all honesty, alternate tunings are a fantastic application for the chord matrix, probably one of the best. So I encourage you, any of you who are familiar with alternate tunings, to try this, okay? These are your strings. Your chords are laying right in front of you. All you have to do is find those notes. So hopefully that helps. I don't want to go into too deep of the alternate tuning bottomless pit, actually, sometimes. I love alternate tunings, but let's just keep it at that for now. And then finally, Grant asked a question. He said, Mixolydian and Dorian scales, insight into these? You actually know those already too. I don't choose to focus on them because I don't run into them all that often. But I'm really doing a lot of flips. Thanks, Levi, for having the teaching cam. This is good.
My pointer finger is going to be sore.
So you already know every single mode that exists by knowing the naturally occurring distances between the natural notes. This is the same as this. We're just starting in a different point. That's all a mode is. Let me give you an example. And you're not going to be quizzed on this in the course or anything, but I thought it was a cool question, and I thought it was a great opportunity to share with you that you actually already know this information. Oh, my last piece of big paper on this pad here. So if I start here, remember, we have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then it repeats on A, right? And we know that there's a whole step between A and B, half step between B and C, whole step C and D, whole step D and E, half step between E and F, F and G is a whole step, G and A is a whole step. Cool. Neat. And remember that I just told you earlier in the live hangout, this is actually our model minor scale. Okay, cool. But what if we started on a B and went to B? Okay, well, that just puts our half and whole steps in a different order. Well, what if we started on a C? Well, we know that one, right? That's our model major scale. The whole steps and half steps don't change their location because you call it a mode. You're just starting on a different note. You can do this all the way down the line. You start on D, start on E, F, G. All the arrangements of whole and half steps have different names. G's Mixolydian. I think F is Lydian. I don't even know the names of all the modes. Noah? Dorian?
Yep.
Ionian?
It's always good to start with C,
Yeah.
right? Which is
Major.
yes, true.
Yeah.
C is made. Yeah, Ionian, right? Dorian.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what did you say?
Well, the point that I was trying to make is that, you know, at least any of the jams and people that I play with, you know, we don't kick off the jam with like, all right, guys, this is in F Phrygian mode, because that's not how I think. I try and tidy up all the things that I have to remember. I try and remember as little as possible and get the most use out of what I remember. So for me, if I know major and minor, that's fine. I know how to create all these other modes, but I don't really use that information. But all the modes are just different arrangements of whole and half steps derived from the naturally occurring whole and half steps that are already in front of our face. So in terms of modes, I encourage you to explore them if it interests you, but you know them already. Mixolydian starts on G. Whatever the arrangement of whole and half steps are naturally, that's the universal rule for Mixolydian mode. And same thing for all the other modes. Every natural note has a mode associated with it. I just would encourage you to focus on minor and major, which is Ionian and Dorian, I guess.
Sure, we'll go with that.
So I want to open up now to, I want to celebrate small wins. I know we still have to do that. I've been yapping a long time. I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions. If I didn't make anything clear, or if you're confused, or you need a pep talk, let's do this. I'm ready.
Cool. Well, we got some stuff.
All right.
We got some small wins. We got a couple light bulbs. We got questions.
Sweet.
What do you want first?
Give me a light bulb.
All right.
throw up an easy one.
All right. Paul, he says light bulb moment. Figured the A scale sharps out without writing it down on paper, and then checked it on the guitar.
Fantastic.
Yep. And then Steven says, Tony, I love this. You make the learning understandable.
Oh, good. I'm very glad to hear that, because I got to be honest. Sometimes when I'm writing this stuff out, I'm like, gosh, I hope this is coming across.
Yeah. All right. Had a couple small wins. Can I throw those out there too?
Yeah, sure.
All right, Dr. Dave, small win. People have posted such great examples in the Finding the Key challenge. This is great food for my brain.
Awesome.
And Michael, he didn't list this as a small win, but I see it as a small win for him. He says his his 2-year-old granddaughter danced to the chord progression that he was practicing.
You can't, I mean, that's just happiness all around. That is pure, that is like just joy.
I looked over and he just wrote, what did he say? He said, 1 bourbon, 1 scotch, 1 beard. That was Dr. Dave. All right. Oh, man. Okay, so questions?
Yeah, let's
see
the questions.
Well, you were speaking of the chord matrix there. And Stephen C., he says, have you really never seen The Matrix? But then...
Accurate.
Yeah. But then going on, he says, what is a major third on top of a major third? Are there any other kinds of intervals, like 2.5, etc.?
Yeah, I think, I don't know. Is that an augmented chord?
I would think so.
I think that's an augmented chord. So that actually brings up a good point. There's different, this chord matrix that I show you is the core foundation for understanding everything that comes next. And I think a lot of times what happens in the realm of theory, especially in any of the books that I've seen, there's a couple great books out there that I'll recommend. Adley's Music Theory for Practical People is great. The Art of Chords is another fantastic book. But this chord matrix here gives you the foundation for understanding everything that comes next. So I encourage everyone to really dig deep on this chord matrix and understanding just the basic major third, minor third equals a major chord, minor third, major third equals a minor chord, and a minor third and a minor third equals a diminished chord. Why? Because those are the naturally occurring chords based on triads. We can add more rows to this chord matrix, no problem. It'll give us chord extensions and all these cool sevens and things like that. But if you don't get this and start adding other layers, it's just gonna it ends up being a weak foundation and things come crumbling down and there's gaps in the knowledge. So I really encourage everybody to understand this. And I look at things that are outside the naturally occurring realm as extensions or as what do we call them? Kind of like chord extensions or different ways to play a chord that kind of like spices up the chord. Like you'll see like a G sus4.
Voicing?
Yeah, another voicing, but it's the triad plus something else, right? I focus on the naturally occurring triads because that's what's naturally occurring within the scale. Anything beyond that, if you add an extra note, that's going to be a major 7, a 7, sus4, whatever chord extension you want. And those all have different arrangements of those thirds that are stacked within them. Different alterations. Sometimes the major third gets bumped by a half step. Sometimes the major third turns into a minor third. But understanding this will give you the base knowledge to be able to start naming that stuff on the fly if you use it often. I don't think about all that stuff. I know, like, for an example, when I play a great example of chord extensions is when I play Freight Train, right? All of those are chord extensions to some degree. But I'm not going to go through and name each of those chords. I think of it as it's a chord with some melody notes, right? So it's really how much of a fine-tooth comb do you want to go through the information with? But if you choose to go that route, understanding this will get you 75% of the way, 80% of the way, probably 90% of the way, because those chord extensions are just another layer and other manipulations on the thirds that are contained within the basic triads.
All right, kind of staying in that same area of the matrix.
The movie?
Yes. Which
I'm gonna fail.
Which, by the way, the first one you gotta watch. The other two, meh.
Okay.
Meh. Okay. Now this is a question that's come up several times. People were talking about. Can you work out the chord matrix for a minor?
Absolutely. Great question. This is phenomenal. Okay, so here's what we know. We know our model minor scale is starting on A, ending on A, addressing all the naturally occurring distances between them. This is our natural, this is our model minor scale, which gives us the universal recipe for a minor scale. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step. Okay, cool, we got that. That's our minor scale, our model minor scale. Let's go ahead and make a minor scale matrix. Oh, I thought I could use this one. Shucks. This one, maybe? No. I'll squeeze it in here. Ignore this stuff. We're going to start down here. So if I have my minor scale starting on A, ending on A, I would go ahead and isolate the first, third, and fifth. Same exact process as the major scale chord matrix. That's why I just refer to it as a chord matrix. Because whatever scale you put in row 1 major, minor, whatever mode you want to pick, you can create a matrix based on it, and it will give you all the naturally occurring chords or triads within that key. So we have A minor here in row 1. We're going to take that 3rd degree, start on C, use the same notes, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Great. 5th degree gives us the next row, starting on E, ending on E. Same notes. Cool. We just created a chord matrix for the key of A minor. And we can get some resulting tonalities from that. But first, before we go there, I want you to look at something real quick. Look at this chord matrix, right? A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G, D, F, A, E, G, B. Now let's go back and look at the C major chord matrix. Oh, okay. A, C, E, B, D, F, C, E, G, D, F, A. It's actually the same. It's identical. It's starting on a different point. Why is it the same? Well, we use the same notes. Exact same notes. We just started in a different place. That's why I think learning modes and things is great, but start with just one and see how far you can take just one thing. Because if you know the C major scale, you actually know the A minor scale, which gives us another rule. For any major scale, let me try my, where's my, there it is. For any major scale, if you look at, don't look at this right now, for any major scale, remember we made an F major scale here? For any major scale, if you look at the 6th degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's its relative minor. Same exact chords, same exact notes, they just occur in a different order. So that was, when I discovered that, I was like, and not saying that I discovered that alone, like in the woods doing some ceremony. Like I discovered that through books and guidance. But that alone was like a major light bulb for me, and is a great, great question. So thank you for asking that.
All right, Tony. So a lot of people are having to skate out and are saying bye. They gotta, get back to work and stuff.
Yeah, I get it.
So let's throw a couple more out to you.
Sure.
Okay, I thought this one was, I love this question. Scott asks, he says, I'm struggling to hear which note matches up to the song being played. Is that something that can be learned, or is that something you must be born with?
No, you can absolutely learn. I'll tell you right now, I knew nothing of the sort. To me, playing by ear, I equated playing, well, I'm stuck on my desk. I equated playing by ear with years of cumulative guitar experience. And that once I crossed this magical threshold of some amount of years, 10, 15, 40, whatever, all of a sudden the switch would go off and I would be gifted with this playing by ear ability, just by virtue of time put in. It has nothing to do with that. So here's what I'll encourage you to do. I want you to take a song that you're familiar with, maybe at this point. Maybe you're just starting. Maybe it's a song you really would like to learn. And go ahead and look up the chords for it, okay? And from there, if you identify the chord that it starts on and identify the chord that it ends on, they're the same. Chances are it's in that key. Let's say it's D. Then go ahead and play that song and just play the D note through it. Okay, just go ahead and start playing that D note through it. And then go 1 fret up and hear how weird that sounds, and then 1 fret back and hear how weird that sounds. What I'm urging you to do is reverse engineer it. So take a song that you know what key it's in, and then go ahead and start on that note, because that's your baseline. That's like, okay, this sounds good. And then stray from that note and start to hear the differences. You're actually looking for the bad note in this case. And by knowing what those bad notes sound like, it'll sound like it will further refine your hearing on the good note. So it's absolutely an ability you can learn. It will take some time. It will definitely take some patience, but I have no doubt that you can learn it. It's going to take a little bit of, like I said, reverse engineering.
Oh man, I'm just going deep in my mind because it's so fun to just go geek and go deep in note relationships. Great answer, Tony. Okay, got another question here. So Mercedes asks, is the key also related to the first and last chord of a song?
Absolutely. Oftentimes that will define the key. There's a lot of different ways to define the key. And I'm talking, what I taught within the lesson was purely by ear. You don't have, an iPad's not sitting next to you. You can't ask somebody. You really want to learn a song. You can't find tabs or anything for it. What do? So you try and find it by ear, finding that lowest note that works throughout the entire song. But if you have the music in front of you, you can look at that first chord and the last chord and say, oh, those match. Chances are about 90% of the time that's the key. Actually, I would say about 98.6% of the time that's the key. There's a couple exceptions, but I'm talking the majority of the time. Was that an accurate percentage?
That was good.
Okay.
That was really good. Sorry, I'm reading some comments coming in. So Faith Rose out there, is perfect pitch learnable?
I think, I actually think it is. I really, truly think it is. I think is there a debate on that?
There is, but I would concur.
I think it's totally learnable.
I think it's learnable. It definitely comes easier to some.
Yeah.
For sure. But it's definitely learnable. I never turn anybody away.
Absolutely. I truly do. I mean, I think, I'm trying to think, there's a time when I didn't have a tuner. I was tuning my dobro prior to a show. And I remembered one song started on this one note that was very distinct. It's like a high G. It's the 5th fret of the D string on the dobro. And I remember just trying to base my whole tuning off that. And by golly, if I wasn't pretty darn close. It might not have been perfect pitch, but it was perfect for bluegrass pitch.
However much time you have to spend on it, right?
Right.
Right. Okay, so we have much more questions, Tony, but we won't get to them all today.
That's okay.
We continue to encourage folks to write them in the comment section.
Yeah. I'll just take a second and just, again, reiterate that. If I don't get to your question today and you're still sitting there like, oh, man, I attended a live Q&A and I'm feeling totally in the weeds here, put it in the comments beneath the lesson. You can even make it a duplicate. I do go through those, and I go through and answer as much as I can in as much explicit detail as I can. And please, I encourage you to check out the other comments and questions that are there as well, because there's been a lot of great discussion between Fretboard Wizard alums and people that are coming in for the first round. It's been really, really helpful.
Yeah,
all right.
That's it for today, Tony.
That's it. We're calling it.
All
right. Well, I got to say thank you guys for helping us out today, figuring out our technical difficulties. But in all seriousness, I wish you guys the best of luck going through this module. Keep going through this module. Learn it. Go through the foundational 5. Do your kind of revisits. Come back and make sure to pop over to the forum and do challenge number 1. Again, you can find that under the course materials. There's a link that says take me to the Fretboard Wizard community, and away you go. You'll see challenge 1. There's some great examples in there already, and I look forward to next week's live Q&A, guys. This is super exciting, and I can't wait to hear about more light bulb moments. Keep up the awesome work, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.